And they've opened a Pandora's box here. By the way, no official vote. It was kind of like one of these, we're going to have lunch deals. They said it was unanimous. It was not unanimous. At least 2 owners abstained, so they did not consult with the union. That's just the institution of this, and the questions have cascaded since then.
Yeah, the debate of whether you agree or disagree with the NFL's decision here, to me, is a secondary concern to the massive miscalculation that the NFL has made. It seems like if you look at the history, the NFL has a history of just, bending its will, the will of its players towards its aims. And I can see why historically you look at their ability, the NFL as a whole, to say we are going to regulate what these players do and it's going to turn out in our favor. But the miscalculation here seems so skewed. And the miscalculation is like, if you look at any enterprise, like let's look at publishing a book. What's the best thing that can happen to that book almost? Being banned somewhere. And what the NFL has done here is reinstitute the stakes for these players, reinstitute the concept that if they do kneel, it will mean something again. Because at the end of last season, I think the last week, it was only 6 players
had dribbled away.
That
not
kneeled.
a problem.
And now they've reintroduced this. And the massive miscalculation, regardless of whether you agree or disagree here, is astounding.
I think the NFL keeps trying to do this thing where they're trying to seemingly please both sides when in reality they have something they want to do all along and are just waiting for people to go along at the right moment. Because bottom line is, one of the biggest problems people have with this is not only Goodell's words about disrespecting the flag, and we've talked about this again and again. I have not seen one player say my stance in kneeling is about disrespecting the flag. And the second part being they had all these conversations with players to talk about how we're going to work with you together. Remember a couple months ago, we haven't asked anybody to stop kneeling. And now you take this action, you do it essentially unilaterally. Even though you can do it that way, what message does that send? You were trying to please the players? Doesn't look like that now. And when somebody kneels in the first preseason game, you're not going to please the fans who didn't like kneeling, and you're not going to please the sponsors who didn't like that either.
And there are related but separate issues here, because no one would tell you that the league is outside its rights doing this. I mean, every workplace has rights. This is not a First Amendment issue. The First Amendment doesn't apply to the workplace. However, the NFL has demonstrated again this tone deafness.
Where are the landmines? I want to step on them.
Right, exactly, and avoidable. This is a problem at this point that it could have avoided. Roger Goodell, again, using imprecise language when he was talking about what they're doing. I think if he had gotten up there and he had said different things, if he had said, instead of, we don't want players disrespecting the flag, if he had said, look, we have a workplace, we have rules. If we allow this to continue, then we have to allow any manner of political protest or any kind of exercise of freedom of speech. Leagues all over the world have rules against that, whatever the local cause has to be. But instead, he made it about the issue that has been on the lips of our president, of people who don't like what the players are doing, and that's separate. So instead of saying this is a workplace comportment issue, he, in some ways, made it a political issue.
They also could have waited on Wednesday if somebody said, what the NBA is about to experience? This tape's about to come out in Milwaukee at 6 o'clock. This is noon, 6 hours difference. It's going to invite a comparison. And then the tape comes out of what happened to Sterling Brown, which inevitably invites... First, it underscores the issue, the existential issue to African-American men of dealing with American policing, unfortunately. And it also shows exactly the comparisons in the public space, the perceptions, at least, of which leagues are more comfortable in this space in the public sphere. And it's inevitable. And I know the NBA has that rule that requires players to stand. But the NFL is perceived as being far less anxious to be involved in these conversations. And they just reinforced it.
And you know what I think was missed in this announcement? So much of this, I think by saying, again, it's disrespectful and talking about the rule, they're not acknowledging why this was happening in the first place, why guys were kneeling. There is a travesty going on in America to many of these players, that black men, no matter who you are, whether you're rich or poor, could be subject to what happened to Sterling Brown. So these men...
And we had this conversation with James Blake.
And many black men don't feel seen. So these men who have this huge platform decided to take a knee, not to disrupt, but to get people to be uncomfortable so they could see the plight of racial injustice in America. And that was the point. And so much of it was tied up in disrespecting the flag and why would you do this? Why would you do it? Because you're not being heard any other way. And then to do it on the same day that this tape comes out just illustrates the point.
They could have waited.
It's why so many guys are frustrated. because it just illustrates the point. No matter how rich you are, no matter what you've got, you could still be taken down by 6 cops and didn't do anything wrong, really, except park over 2 parking spots.
Right. And if you further process the miscalculation of the NFL here, you look at even the way the vote was done, right? It's like, it smacks of just impromptu.
Ad hoc.
Exactly.
No
exactly.
vote taken, hands around the table.
Right. And
like
within
picking
that,
lunch.
I mean, you mentioned the 2 owners who abstained from the vote. And
then the league denied that Davis abstained, and Davis said, no, hell no, I did not abstain. Get your story straight, for crying out loud.
Exactly. And one of them even mentioned it was because he wanted to go talk to his players. And you've got another owner, I believe it was the Jets owner, saying he would perhaps pay for the fines of his players. So if you're talking about freedom of speech, it is being protected, and the NFL has the right here to say this. Well, within that, every team has the right to pay fines or to retroactively take a different side than the NFL has as a whole.
Here's a fact, though. If I've got $1 billion or more invested in an NFL team, I have the right to protect my investment. It is a private business. There are political concerns here. We've seen that with what the president said yesterday. There are financial concerns, certainly. And there's a huge number of Americans who are offended when people don't stand for the national anthem. And they are many of them, I will say, are people of good heart who don't have bad heart.
Absolutely.
Who just don't share the view that is the time to.
Let me ask you this question. If you feel that way, why not have a clear rule? Why not have number penalties in there? Why not say if you're standing and you do some other kind of motion, that's a penalty? There is so much gray in all of this that when someone does protest, you're giving the NFLPA wide latitude to bring a case against you and try to disrupt any kind of penalty that tries to get assessed here.